Hello and welcome to this exploring session, and today we are continuing our adventures through the world of Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay by Robert Greene. Today we are looking through the Acts 3 and 4 as it's listed in our script. It should be pointed out that the act divisions are somewhat artificial, but they're useful for administrative purposes of this session and others. So far, the story is all about love and desire and magic and stuff. Go and watch the previous video. That'll explain everything. That'll be fine. It's a play that we have, started getting to grips with. The comedy, the magic, all the various forces in play are now pretty much all set up. But now the question of where does the story go from here? And to discover that, I have this wonderful selection of faces on this video screen before us to try and understand how this play ticks and get a sense of what we might do with it in the future. In no particular order, playing Bacon today is
Liza Graham, singer, actor, and Renaissance text coach, 2 actors in London.
And similarly, a titular character, they're only getting second billing, playing Bungay is...
Hello, Dan, actor based in Montpellier, France.
Today reading Elinor and Miles is...
Aliki, Chapple, actor and theatrical translator based in the UK.
And today reading the Prince, Vandermast and Keeper, and I'm hoping there are no clashes with that, is...
Steve Longstaffe, scholar of early modern drama based in Lancaster in the UK.
And today reading Hercules post Ralph and probably just the physical manifestation of Ermsby, because we just discovered he doesn't actually say anything in this section, is...
I'm Jitka, Štollová. I am a junior research fellow in English literature at Trinity College, Cambridge.
And reading Lacy and First Scholar today is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good and I'm a historian.
Reading Margaret and Castile today is...
Hi, I'm Tamara. I'm an actor usually based in London, currently in Germany.
Today reading Warren and Lambert is...
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Amisu and I'm an author based in Romford in Essex.
Reading King Henry and Serlsby is...
Hi, I'm Ruth Evans. I'm a specialist in later medieval English literature and I'm based in St. Louis in the US.
And reading The Emperor and Second Scholar today is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk. I'm neither imperial, a scholar, nor an actor.
And I think I've covered everyone. I am your host, Robert Crighton, and today I will be... we'll get to it. So, without further ado, let's go straight into how we've got listed as Act 3, Scene 1. Enter Prince Edward with his poignard in his hand, Lacy and Margaret.
Lacy, thou canst not shroud thy traitorous thoughts, nor cover, as did Cassius, all thy wiles. For Edward hath an eye that looks as far as Lynceus from the shores of Graecia. Did I not sit in Oxford by the friar and see thee court the maid of Fressingfield, sealing thy flattering fancies with a kiss? Did not proud Bungay draw his portis forth and, joining hand in hand, had married you, if Friar Bacon had not struck him dumb and mounted him upon a spirit's back, that we might chat at Oxford with the friar? Traitor, what answerst? Is not all this true?
Truth all, my lord, and thus I make reply. At Harleston fair, there courting for your grace, when as mine eyes surveyed her curious shape, and drew the beauteous glory of her looks, to dive into the centre of my heart, love taught me that your honour did but jest, that princes were in fancy but as men, how that the lovely maid of Fressingfield was fitter to be Lacy's wedded wife than concubine unto the Prince of Wales.
Injurious Lacy, did I love thee more than Alexander his Hephaestion? Did I unfold the passions of my love and lock them in the closet of thy thoughts? Wert thou to Edward second to himself, sole friend and partner of his secret loves, and could a glance of fading beauty break the enchained fetters of such private friends? Base, coward, false, and too effeminate to be co-rival with a prince in thoughts. From Oxford I have posted since I dined, to quite a traitor for that Edward's sleep.
'Twas I, my lord, not Lacy, stepped array. For oft he sued and courted for yourself, and still wooed for the courtier all in green. But I, whom fancy made but over fond, pleaded myself with looks as if I loved. I fed mine eye with gazing on his face, and still bewitched loved Lacy with my looks. My heart with sighs, mine eyes pleaded with tears. My face held pity and content at once, and more I could not cipher out by signs, but that I loved Lord Lacy with my heart. Then, worthy Edward, measure with thy mind if women's favours will not force men fall, if beauty and if darts of piercing love are not a force to bury thoughts of friends.
I tell thee, Peggy, I will have thy loves. Edward or none shall conquer Margaret. In frigates, bottomed with rich Sethin planks, topped with lofty firs of Lebanon, stemmed and encased with burnished ivory, and overlaid with plates of Persian wealth, like Thetis shalt thou wanton on the waves, and draw the dolphins to thy lovely eyes, to dance lavoltas on the purple streams. Sirens with harps and silver psalteries shall wait with music at thy frigate's stem, and entertain fair Margaret with their lays. England and England's wealth shall wait on thee. Britain shall bend unto her prince's love, and do due homage to thine excellence, if thou wilt be but Edward's Margaret.
Pardon, my lord, if Jove's great royalty sent me such presents as to Danae, if Phoebus, tired in Latona's webs, came courting from the beauty of his lodge the dulcet tunes of frolic Mercury, not all the wealth heaven's treasury affords should make me leave Lord Lacy or his love.
I have learnt at Oxford there this point of schools. Ab lauta causa tollitur effectus. Lacy, the cause that Margaret cannot love nor fix her liking on the English prince, take him away, and then the effects will fail. Villain, prepare thyself, for I will bathe my poniard in the bosom of an earl.
Rather than live and miss fair Margaret's love, Prince Edward stop not at the fatal doom, but stab it home and end both my loves and life.
Brave Prince of Wales, honoured for royal deeds, 'twas sin to stain fair Venus' courts with blood. Love's conquest ends, my lord, in courtesy. Spare Lacy, gentle Edward, let me die, for so both you and he do cease your loves.
Lacy shall die, as traitor to his lord.
I have deserved it, Edward. Act it well.
What hopes the prince to gain by Lacy's death?
Or to end the loves twixt him and Margaret.
Why, thinks King Henry's son that Margaret's love hangs in the uncertain balance of proud time? That death shall make a discord of our thoughts? No, stab the earl, and for the morning sun shall vaunt him thrice over the lofty east. Margaret will meet her Lacy in the heavens.
If aught betides to lovely Margaret that wrongs or wrings her honour from content, Europe's rich wealth nor England's monarchy should not allure Lacy to overlive. Then, Edward, short my life and end her loves.
Rid me and keep a friend worth many loves.
Nay, Edward, keep a love worth many friends.
And if thy mind be such as fame hath blazed, Then, princely Edward, let us both abide the fatal resolution of thy rage. Banish thou fancy and embrace revenge, and in one tomb knit both our carcasses, whose hearts were linked in one perfect love.
Edward, art thou that famous Prince of Wales who at Damasco beat the Saracens and brought home triumph on thy lance's point? And shall thy plumes be pulled by Venus down? Is princely to dissever love's leagues, to part such friends as glory in their loves? Leave, Ned. Make a virtue of this fault, and further Peg and Lacy in their loves. So, in subduing fancy's passion, conquering thyself, thou getst the richest spoil. Lacy, rise up. Fair Peggy, here's my hand. The Prince of Wales hath conquered all his thoughts, and all his loves he yields unto the Earl. Lacy, enjoy the Maid of Fressingfield. Make her thy Lincoln Countess at the church, and Ned, as he is true Plantagenet, will give her to thee frankly for thy wife.
Humbly, I take her of my sovereign, and if that Edward give me England's right, and rich me with the Albion's diadem.
And doth the English prince mean true? Will he vouchsafe to cease his former loves, and yield the title of a country maid unto Lord Lacy?
I will, fair Peggy, as I am true lord.
Then, lordly sir, whose conquest is as great in conquering love as Caesar's victories, Margaret, as mild and humble in her thoughts as was Aspasia unto Cyrus' self, yields thanks, and next Lord Lacy doth enshrine Edward the Second secret in her heart.
A gramercy, Peggy. Now that vows are past, and that your loves are not to be revoked, once Lacy, friends again, come, we will post to Oxford. For this day the king is there, and brings for Edward Castile Elinor. Peggy, I must go and see and view my wife. I pray God I like her, as I loved thee. Beside Lord Lincoln we shall hear dispute twixt Friar Bacon and learned Vandermast. Peggy will leave you for a week or two.
As it please Lord Lacy, but love's foolish looks think footsteps miles and minutes to be hours.
I'll hasten, Peggy, to make short return, but please your honour go into the lodge. We shall have butter, cheese and venison. And yesterday I bought for Margaret a lusty bottle of neat claret wine. Thus can we feast and entertain your grace.
'Tis cheer, Lord Lacy, for an emperor, if he respect the person and the place. Come, let us in, for I will all this night ride post, until I come to Bacon's cell.
And they exit. Fascinating moment in the scene where it's like, kill me, no, kill both of us.
Yeah.
It's interesting, yes, because Edward continues being a bit of an arse, shall we say, throughout much of that. And yet, there is a moment when I've written in my notes, beautiful arse music. There's a bit when he does get very poetic, and it is quite beautiful. And outside of the context of the scene, I go, that's a lovely beach. But it's also within the context of the scene, therefore not. Liza wants to leap in on that one.
As always, this scene is Marlovian as hell. Did anyone else catch a serious Marlowe flavor in this whole thing? Even the verse seems to have a different quality than a lot of the other verse here.
Ah. I'm not a great Marlowe scholar, I'm afraid.
It's not usual in plays with some kind of historical English medieval subject matter for them to be waffling quite so much about classical stuff, I think. I don't recall wooing scenes being quite so elusive in your typical history play.
Yeah, and
I mean,
In
is this
this-
a typical history play?
In this
Well,
play, heretofore, we've really only had a couple of classical allusions here and there. But seriously, like if you read, for example, Faustus's speech to Helen of Troy, or Gaveston's speech about the entertainments he's going to offer Edward, those sort of hyperbolic, hypersensual classical metaphors coming one after the other are incredibly Marlowe, as indeed is the heightened dramatic feel of stab me, no, stab us both, no, this isn't a metaphor for penetration at all, no.
Definitely echoes of it, but if it were about 40, 50 lines with numerous allusions and a lot more Latin, I would say absolutely.
I mean, it might be a case of if it's in conversation with Marlowe, you know, and especially as the scene is in theory should perhaps, I mean, how comic should this scene be? I mean, that's the question is, you know, if it's hyperbolic and they're doing crazy, you know, kill me and my wife. No, you know, it has a certain I am Spartacus, I am Brian quality to elements of it. Alan's hand I saw first. I also see Dan's. Alan first.
Yeah, I mean, the thought I've got is that we've done a number of Greene's plays, and from recollection, he did seem to have swallowed an anthology of the classics and chucked them in willy-nilly whenever he felt he could get away with it. So I wonder if that is partial explanation for the number of references.
Mm-hmm. Dan?
It's interesting to hear it. I mean, it seemed like a very dramatic reading of a scene where, in my mind, I'm hearing it being read over dramatically or melodramatically. So I'm really glad to be able to hear it this way, because I'm always curious to hear how is it going to sound if this were to be read as a drama rather than as a comedy. So just to have the choices.
You know, the prince is continuing his traditional reign of going, what's the problem here? Let's just kill it. Killing the problem always solves the problem. That seems to be what Edward's go-to place. The fact that he has some sort of turnaround and then remembers he's supposed to be engaged to somebody else towards the end of the thing. I really like the fact that Margaret picks him up and goes, Edward, are you serious about this? I really like Margaret for that bit of just going, could I just have that in writing? That this is all cool. You're not going to change your mind later. Stephen, I think I saw your hand.
Yeah, well, just I mean, I had to really stop myself from trying to find loads of gags in the Prince's speech, because you know you can just do a kind of total sort of Dr. Evil thing, where he's playing with them, you know. And I think it's definitely something that you could bring out in performance if you wanted to.
I heard the voice of Sidney Greenstreet throughout all of that, because he's turning very, really serious, and all of a sudden, okay.
Also, the prince has the thing of going, and by the way, there's another plot strand going on. We shall return to that. Let me just praise it for anyone who's come in late. Always appreciative when the prince does that. Helen.
I read it straight with, you know, peril, and I see it as straight. But what interested me was the timing and logistics. From Oxford have I posted since I dined. I mean, that is an unnecessary line to say this. I mean, he doesn't actually have to, for the benefit of the plot or character. But I mean, so presuming he dined at midday, so he was intending to ride back that same day, but was persuaded to stay over, have some food, and then ride back through the night.
And it does suggest that the impetus of his motives. I mean, a journey to Oxford to Fressingfield, that's barely a day. Bit, you know, you'd kill out quite a few horses trying to do that. I would have thought. It's doable.
Be bad enough in this motor transport.
Yeah. So it does speak to the intensity of his humiliation and the scene earlier, that that he has done this, that he's travelled here as quickly as that.
I don't know, obviously, what happened in the first two acts, but is this a sign of impetuous nature anyway?
It's a bit of that, yeah. But he did see them, getting off. They had a snog, so he get to watch this by magical means. They made out and everything.
He's an impetuous fellow, and your first reaction is kill him.
Or punch him out.
This is the third time. But I suddenly, part way through, I thought, hang on, I know who this is. This is Longshanks.
Yes, it is.
This is the Hammer of the Scots. This is the man with the bad temper.
Who we will be meeting soon in their own dedicated place. So it'll be interesting to compare and contrast at another time.
It suddenly occurred to me that, how far the audience would be aware, I'm not sure, because so far we know he's been to the Holy Land. We don't know anything else about him.
It's interesting because we don't really get plays on Henry III, and nominally you could say this is one. It's not like we have ones proclaiming the fascinating story of Henry III anywhere, or at least surviving anyway. He features. I don't think he is the feature. Okay, I do need to move us forward unless anyone's got. Jitka, do you want to jump in?
Oh, I just wanted to say that I really like the tone of Margaret here in this scene, and that quiet dignity almost, which seems to be encapsulated in the title of A Country Maid. I mean, that's really brilliant. And again, we have her being one of those who really uses these classical allusions, not always correctly, as we discussed yesterday, but still. So part of me really wants the secret plot of this to be that, in the final act, she is revealed as a secret student of Oxford, and not really the cheesemaker. But anyway, we shall see.
I guess the point partly is that a country maid can be just as noble. And I do like that Greene doesn't hold back in the style that he writes for her. Only one quick more thing to flag up, which is that continuing the potential Marlovian shoutouts in this scene is a prince named Edward speaking in classically elusive, quite intimate terms to his male confidant right early on.
Okay. Anything else before we move on to the next scene? Okay, I see no hands. So, scene 2 of this is session. Enter King Henry, the Emperor, the King of Castile, Elinor, Vandermast, and Bungay.
Trust me, Plantagenet, these Oxford schools are richly seated near the riverside. The mountains full of fat and fallow deer, the battling pastures laid with kine and flocks. The town gorgeous with high-built colleges, and scholars seemly in their grave attire, learned in searching principles of art. What is thy judgment, Jacques Vandermast?
That lordly are the buildings of the town, spacious, the rooms, and full of pleasant walks. But for the doctors, how that they be learned, maybe meanly for aught that I can hear.
I tell the German, Habsburg holds no such, none read so deep as Oxford contains. There are within our academic state men that may lecture it in Germany to all the doctors of your Belgic schools.
Stand to him, Bungay. Charm this Vandermast, and I will use thee as a royal king.
Wherein darest thou dispute with me?
In what a doctor and a friar can.
Well, before rich Europe's worthies put thou forth the doubtful question unto Vandermast.
Let it be this, whether the spirits of pyromancy or geomancy be most predominant in magic.
I say of pyromancy.
And I of geomancy.
Cabalists, the magic spells as Hermes, Melchi, Pythagoras affirm that amongst the quadruplicity of elemental essence, terror is but thought to be a punctum, squared to the rest, and that the compass of ascending elements exceed in bigness as they do in height. Judging the concave circle of the sun, then only giveth shape to spirit.
I'm afraid, Stephen, you're really cutting out there.
Beginning and start again.
Just about midway through, you really cut out. You're
Okay.
you're ebbing in and out very much, volume wise. I'm wondering if it's a settings thing.
Okay, I'll go from.
And that the compass of ascending elements about there. I think we lost it.
Yeah. Okay. And that the compass of ascending elements exceed in bigness as they do in height, judging the concave circle of the sun to hold the rest in his circumference. Well, if then, as Hermes says, the fire be greatest, purest, and only giveth shape to spirits, then must these demons that haunt the place be every way superior to the rest.
I reason not of elemental shapes, nor tell I of the concave latitudes, noting their essence nor their quality, but of the spirits that pyromancy calls, and of the vigor of the geomantic fiends. I tell thee, German, magic haunts the grounds, and those strange necromantic spells that work such shows and wandering in the world are acted by those geomantic spirits that Hermes calleth terrae filii. The fiery spirits are but transparent shades that lightly pass as heralds to bear news, but earthly fiends close in the lowest deep, dissever mountains if they be but charged, being more gross and massy in their power.
Rather, these earthly geomantic spirits are dull, like the place where they remain. For when proud Lucifer fell from the heavens, the spirits and angels that did sin with him retained their local essence as their false or subject under Lula's continent. They which offended less hung in the fire, and second faults did rest within the air, but Lucifer and his proud-hearted fiends were thrown into the centre of the earth, having less understanding than the rest, as having greater sin and lesser grace. Therefore, such gross and earthly spirits do serve for jugglers, witches, vile sorcerers, whereas the pyromantic genii are mighty, swift, and of far-reaching power. Grant that geomancy hath most force, Bungay, to please these mighty potentates. Prove by some instance what thy art can do.
I will.
Now, English Harry, here begins the game. We shall see sport between these learned men.
What wilt thou do?
Show thee the tree, leaved with refined gold, whereon the fearful dragon held his seat, that watched the garden called Hesperides, subdued and won by conquering Hercules.
And here Bungay conjures, and the tree appears with the fire as dragon shooting fire.
Well done.
What say you, royal lordings, to my friar? Hath he not done a point of cunning skill?
Each scholar in the necromantic spells can do as much as Bungay hath performed, but as Alkmaner's bastard raised this tree, so will I raise him up, as when he lived, and cause him to pull the dragon from his seat, and tear the branches piecemeal from the root. Hercules, Prode, Hercules.
And Hercules appears in his lion's skin.
Vis me vult.
Jove's bastard son, thou Libyan Hercules, pull off the sprigs from off the Hesperian tree, as once thou didst to win the golden fruit.
Fiat.
And he begins to break the branches. Poor tree.
Now, Bungay, if thou canst, by magic charm, the fiend appearing like great Hercules, from pulling down the branches of the tree, then thou art worthy to be counted learned.
I cannot.
Cease, Hercules, until I give thee charge. Mighty commander of this English isle, Henry, come from stout Plantagenets. Bungay is learned enough to be a friar, but to compare with Jacques Vandermast, Oxford and Cambridge must go seek themselves to find a man to match him in his art. I have given nonplus to the Paduans, to them of Sienne, Florence, and Bologna, Reims, Leuven, fair Rotterdam, Frankfurt, Utrecht, and Orleans. And now must Henry, if he do me right, crown me with a laurel, as they all done.
Ah, but enter Bacon.
All hail to this royal company that sit and hear to see this strange dispute. Bungay, how standst thou as a man amazed? What, hath the German acted more than thou?
What art thou that question thus?
Ah, men call me Bacon.
Lordly thou look'st, as if thou wert learned. Thy countenance, as if science held her seat between the circled arches of thy brows.
Now, monarchs, hath the German found his match?
Bestir thee, Jacques, take not now the foil, lest thou dost lose what foretime thou didst gain.
Bacon, wilt thou dispute?
Ah, no, unless he were more learned than Vandermast. For yet tell me, what hast thou done?
Raised Hercules to ruinate that tree that Bungay mounted by his magic spells.
Set Hercules to work.
Now, Hercules, I charge thee to thy task. Pull off the golden branches from the roots.
I dare not. Seest thou not great Bacon here, whose frown doth act more than thy magic can?
By all the thrones and dominations, virtues, powers, and mighty hierarchies, I charge thee to obey to Vandermast.
Bacon, that bridles headstrong Bellerophon and rules Asmenoth, guider of the north, binds me from yielding unto Vandermast.
How now, Vandermast? Have you met with your match?
Never before was known to Vandermast that men held devils in such obedient awe. Bacon doth more than art, or else I fail.
Why, Vandermast, art thou overcome? Bacon, dispute with him and try his skill.
I came not, monarchs, for to hold dispute with such a novice as is Vandermast. I came to have your royalties to dine with Friar Bacon here in Brazen Nose. And for this German troubles but the place, and holds this audience with a long suspense, I'll send him to his academy hence. Thou, Hercules, whom Vandermast did raise, transport the German unto Habsburg straight, that he may learn by travail against the spring more secret dooms and aphorisms of art. Vanish the tree, and thou away with him.
Exit Hercules with Vandermast and the tree.
Why, Bacon, whither dost thou send him?
To Habsburg, there your highness at return shall find the German in his study safe.
Bacon, thou hast honoured England with thy skill and made fair Oxford famous by thine art. I will be English Henry to thyself. But tell me, shall we dine with thee today?
With me, my lord, and while I fit my cheer, see where Prince Edward comes to welcome you, gracious as the morning star of heaven.
And indeed, Bacon appears to exit here. Enter Prince Edward, Lacy, Warren, Ermsby, etc.
Is this Prince Edward, Henry's royal son? How martial is the figure of his face, yet lovely and beset with amorettes.
Ned, where hast thou been?
At Framlingham, my lord. To try your books if they could scape the teasers or the toil. But hearing of these lordly potentates landed and progressed up to Oxford town, I posted to give entertain to them, chief to the Almain monarch. Next to him, and joint with him, Castile and Saxony are welcome as they may be to the English court. Thus for the men, but see, Venus appears, or one that overmatcheth Venus in her shape. Sweet Elinor, beauty's high swelling pride, rich nature's glory and her wealth at once, fair of all fairs. Welcome to Albion, welcome to me, and welcome to thine own, if thou deign'st the welcome from myself.
You're muted, Aliki.
So, in my attempt to unmute myself, I lost my page.
Marshal Plantagenet. Anyone know what page number we're on?
32?
34.
34.
35.
32, 33, 34, higher, lower. It's somewhere around there.
I'll get into the 30s, shall I?
Yeah.
Depends on your formatting. Marshal Plantagenet, Henry's high-minded son.
Yeah, I had just said it muted, but I'm sorry. Somebody else had better read it because my script has gone away.
Oh.
It's gone blank.
Marshal Plantagenet, Henry's high-minded son. The mark that Elinor did counter-aim. I liked thee, for I saw thee. Now I love, and so as in so short a time I may. Yet so as time shall never break that so, and therefore so accept of Elinor.
Fear not, my lord, this couple will agree, if love may creep into their wanton eyes, and therefore, Edward, I accept thee here, without suspense, as my adopted son.
Let me that joy in these consorting greets, and glory in these honours done to Ned, yield thanks for all these favours to my son, and rest a true Plantagenet to all.
And here, enter Miles with a cloth and trenchers and salt.
Salvete omnes reges that govern your Gregis in Saxony and Spain, in England and in Almain. For all this frolic rabble must I cover the table, with trenchers, salt, and cloth, and then look for your broth.
What pleasant fellow is this?
'Tis, my lord, Dr. Bacon's poor scholar.
My master hath made me sewer of these great lords, and God knows I am as serviceable at a table as a sow is under an apple tree. 'Tis no matter, their cheer shall not be great, and therefore what skills where the salt stand, before or behind?
And Miles exits.
These scholars know more skill in axioms, how to use quips and sleights of sophistry, than for to cover courtly for a king.
Re-enter Miles with a mess of pottage and broth, and after him bacon.
Spill, sir, why do you think I never carried 2-penny chop before in my life? By your leave, nobile decus, for here comes Dr. Bacon Specus, being in his full age to carry a mess of potage.
Lordings, admire not if your cheer be this, for we must keep our academic fair, no riot where philosophy doth reign. And therefore, Henry, place these potentates, and bid them fall unto their frugal cates.
Presumptuous friar, what scoffest thou at a king? What, dost thou taunt us with thy peasants' fare, and give us cates fit for country swains? Henry, proceed to this jest of thy consent, to twit us with pittance of such price. Tell me, and Frederick will not grieve thee long.
By Henry's honour and the royal faith, the English monarch beareth to his friend, I knew not of the friar's feeble fare, nor am I pleased he entertains you thus.
Content thee, Frederick, for I showed the cates to let thee see how scholars used to feed, how little meat refines our English wits. Miles, take away, and let it be thy dinner.
Marry, sir, I will. This day shall be a festival day with me, for I shall exceed in the highest degree.
Exit Miles.
I tell thee, monarch, all the German peers could not afford thy entertainment such, so royal and so full of majesty, as Bacon will present to Frederick. The basest waiter that attends thy cups shall be in honours greater than thyself, and for thy cates rich Alexandria drugs, fetched by Carvels from Egypt's richest straits, found in the wealthy strand of Africa, shall royalize the tables of my king. Wines richer than the Egyptian courtesan, quaffed to Augustus' kingly countermatch, shall be caroused in English Henry's feast. Candy shall yield the richest of her canes. Persia, down her Volga by canoes, send down the secrets of her spicery. The Afric dates, mirabolans of Spain, conserves and suckets from Tiberias, cates from Judea, choicer than the lamp that fired Rome with sparks of gluttony, shall beautify the board for Frederick, and therefore grudge not at a friar's feast.
And they all exit. So it's an interesting scene. Lots of stuff going on. I almost paused as earlier, but I didn't. So let's just go back to the sort of opening of everything, which is this: we have a battle of wits before we have a battle of magic. And so I'm wondering about the battle of wits. How much the audience is supposed to follow that? How does that stage, how does that come across, and how does that function dramatically? Thoughts about that opening exchange between Vandermast and Bungay?
I mean, the only thing that I can see that would be funny would be if you did funny foreigner humor with it.
Yeah.
It's not working for me at all, but perhaps that's just me.
Well, it's a question: is it supposed to be funny? I mean, the question. I don't see that Vandermast seems to be written as funny foreigner. We have had funny foreigners written in specific ways. Ruth,
I want to know much more about how Germany is perceived at the time when this play was written, because there seems to be an awful lot of undercurrents about, we're kind of like it's a pissing contest where the Germans are going to lose. You know, I want to know much more about that.
Tamara?
Well, I just find it funny that it's constantly referred to as Germany. Germany didn't exist until this one guy decided to make it into one Kaiserreich. So it's fascinating to me. I need to go back and learn my own country's history a bit more.
Germany was often used as a catch-all term for anywhere from the Netherlands through the Holy Roman Empire. They just kind of Germany.
The continent.
Yeah, over there.
Them foreigners across the pond.
It's a question of even then. I mean, how much the audience is supposed to follow what Vandermast and Bungay are debating.
More importantly, how much the emperor, the king, and the other kings are actually following it.
Because the scene could be about their confusion as well.
Yes, I mean, they could be as totally baffled by it as the audience, and sort of either glazing over or wondering when they can make an excuse to leave. I mean, that's...
Or they're being emperor's new clothes, and they're sitting there going, yes, good point. Very good point, Vandermast. Yeah, our side's winning. Alan, I see a hand. I also see Stephen and Liza. So Alan first.
Yeah, I must admit the mental image I'm getting is Mickey Mouse and broomsticks. Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Stephen.
There's a great sketch from a show called Beyond the Fringe from the 1960s, which is basically about two philosophers talking. And they do manage to make it funny and also to be kind of philosophically acute by just kind of parodying people's idea of a sort of Oxbridge Don as somebody who is just completely chasing these sort of will-o'-the-wisp ideas. So you could get comedy out of Vandermast and Bungay being cut from the same cloth and just responding in kind of ridiculously over-the-top ways to some seemingly insignificant point that the other is making. I'll maybe post a link to the show or something like that. It's all in the body language, basically.
Liza.
Okay, so I'm going to try and keep this brief, but Elizabethan occultism is a subject I particularly love, and I have to say, Greene's expounding here is pretty sound, according to what was going around, a popular version of what was going around at the time. He's talking in Vandermast is talking in terms of the Ptolemaic cosmos, with the Earth at the center, surrounded by spheres of water, air, and fire. geocentrism the heliocentric cosmos is around at the time. Copernicus published in 1543, but Galileo isn't for a bit. He's not till like 1609 or so. And I hesitate to speak this name because it tends to bring internet nut jobs crawling out of the woodwork. But this is the age that employs Dr. John Dee. So there is an official astrologer / magician working at Elizabeth's court. So it makes sense that any potentate has a magician working for them. Dee had studied in the Netherlands and then went on to the Czech Republic. So the association with lands that people think of as Germany and magic was strong. He also, Vandermast also mentions Italy, where a lot of the Christian Kabbalah stuff came from. People were very, scholars at least, or some scholars, were very concerned with whether you could practice magic in a way that wouldn't get you damned, in a way that, whether you could practice magic in a way that was consistent with Christianity. And the Christian Kabbalah stuff, they all mention Hermes. They mean Hermes Trismegistus. We don't know whose pen name or whether it was a group of people's pen name that was, but it was stuff that came out of Byzantium via Florence.
But do we think a popular audience will be following this debate, or whether that it's going to be deliberate? You know, even if it's accurate or not.
Well, remember this was stuff that was in fashion at court, and so some version of that is going to filter down, whether it's accurate or just dropping terms that people will recognize. I see more hands, so I'll shut up now.
Well, it's just the point is, for us today, you know, people are not. Is the assumption? Well, the question is, if it is expected that this is something people are going to follow, then it is our job to some degree to make sure a modern audience can. And that's sort of the question. Dan, I saw.
Just to follow off of what Stephen and Liza were saying, yes, I do think they would have followed. Maybe not to every single detail that they would have said, but this play, you have also just the Latin plays Pedantius and Ignoramus. You've got The Alchemist that comes out later. This play was very popular and printed over and over throughout the 17th century. And I doubt it's because it was just going over everyone's heads there.
I just want to move the conversation on a little bit because we have barely scratched the surface of this scene. So it's interesting. Bungay suddenly is the person they go to. They're not going to Bacon, who they said earlier they were going to go to. Bungay has been whisked over here. We haven't seen him interact with anybody else, and yet suddenly he's here doing the opening gambit with the magic tree and a dragon. And I'm starting to be reminded of magic arbors and snakes when we were doing Looking Glass for London. It's the same sort of material. We've had Hercules turn up somewhere else, and I can't remember where off the top of my head. But you know, he's there, and you know, he's to do some damage. Yeah, rah. Lots of fun that can be had with that. And I love the way Hercules just goes, "Oh, I'm not going near Bacon. Look at his miserable face." No, he's and all of that magic-y stuff that's going on there, which is, again, it's still relatively light touch magic in terms of staging things. And it's interesting how we would do that. Alan?
Yeah, I was just thinking, one, you've obviously got quite a lot of stage mechanics involved with the effect, which I think ties back with other plays we've looked at from Greene and this company. And I think the explanation for why Bungay is put on as the warm-up act is to make Bacon's subsequent triumphing look even more impressive.
Yeah,
you know, we're going to send the lad on first to soften up the opposition, and when he's getting all smug, we'll send Bacon in to chop him off at the knees.
Yeah, he's the opening batsman, and then you send in your big hitters. I'm very tempted to put a scoreboard up. You know, if I was doing this, you know, round one to Bungay. No, Vandermast is next in. Oh, he's ahead, and that kind of thing. Scene then goes into this other bit with Miles and Bacon and their repast, and making this point about what poor scholars get to eat. It's an interesting little scene, and then obviously Bacon gets to turn the tables. You know, he really likes manipulating and playing with people, does Bacon. He's still not coming across as a lovely chap.
I assume Miles was the clown role.
Yeah, one of. He's there's quite a few in this. Any thoughts about the closing of the scene, or any of the magic-y stuff?
That's awful. Yesterday's was quite fast-paced, but this scene seemed to drag a little with the inclusion of Hercules and all the magical special effects for the staging. I think it starts to drag a little.
Other thoughts before we move forward?
The prince.
Many thoughts. Aliki first.
Sorry, quick question. What are cates?
Delicates. Anything nice to eat.
Thank you.
We've got a few little mini contractions like that turn up and things. I saw Jitka.
Oh, I just want to say that the scene is brilliant for the stage directions. I mean, it's almost as much fun to read it as it might be to perform it, because you lose the descriptions. And yeah, I think Exit Hercules with Vandermast and the tree is one of the highlights of real modern drama for me when it comes to stage directions.
Yes, is that the official order of precedence for their exiting? As Hercules pick up Vandermast and the tree? You know, there's so many interesting questions that we could play with there. Other thoughts, Liza?
That the banquet is the first time we see the kings see Bacon actually do anything, because originally he proved his power by not doing anything, by stopping Hercules. He didn't even argue for himself. Hercules argued for him. And then he presents them with this humble feast in like wooden bowls or whatever, and trenchers. There was, and I'm not sure, I'm going to have to check dates, but there was one nobleman, at least one at this time, who loved spectacle, and who, in addition to staging masks and things, would put on false feasts for people. He had like this trick table that he would lay a feast out and people would be all ready to eat, and then the table would sort of collapse and the feast would slide off, and one imagines the servants eating all the leftovers below, and then a second, even more elaborate feast would be brought out, and people would be just stunned by this.
Helen?
Yes, I was just going to note that the prince knows how to behave in public.
Yeah, he's got his script well learned, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Stephen?
Just to go back to the magic point, Giordano Bruno was taken up to Oxford in 1583 to hear disputations. He's a philosopher, but also an occultist. He was burnt at the stake in Rome in 1600. So there are definitely figures like this around.
Yeah, he's one of the proponents of Christian Kabbalah. Helen, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, when Giordano Bruno actually gave a lecture in Oxford, and half the court went to Oxford to hear him, and there are loads of letters saying how disappointed they were because his Latin pronunciation was such that no one understood a word.
Oh, that's the problem with hype. It's always the problem, isn't it? Oh yeah, bought tickets to see. Yeah, it was disappointing. We do need to move forward, I'm afraid. For anyone who was with us during King Darius, the bit when Miles comes on with the food, so I was triggered. I don't know if you were. We'll go on to the next scene, Act 3, Scene 3. Enter Lambert and Serlsby with the keeper.
Eric, keeper of our liege's game, whose table spread half of a venison and jacks of wines to welcome passengers. Know I'm in love with jolly Margaret, that overshined our damsels as the moon darkeneth the brightest sparkles of the night. In Waxfield, here my land and living lies, I'll make thy daughter jointer of it all, so thou consent to give her to my wife, and I can spend 500 marks a year.
I am the landlord keeper of thy holds. I copy all thy living lies in me. Laxfield did never see me raise my due. I will enfeoff fair Margaret in all, so she will take her to a lusty squire.
Now, courteous gentles, if the keeper's girl hath pleased the liking fancy of you both, and with her beauty hath subdued your thoughts, 'tis doubtful to decide the question. It joys me that such men of great esteem should lay their liking on this base estate, and that her state should grow so fortunate to be a wife to meaner men than you. But sith such squires will stoop to keeper's fee, I will, to avoid displeasure of you both, call Margaret forth, and she shall make her choice.
Content, keeper, send her unto us.
And exit the keeper.
Why, Serlsby, is thy wife so lately dead? Are all thy love so lightly passed over, as thou canst wear before the year be out?
I live not, Lambert, to content the dead, nor was I wedded but for life to her. The grave ends and begins with a married state.
Enter Margaret.
He, the lovely flower of all towns, Suffolk's fair Helen, and rich England's star, whose beauty tempered with her high swiftray, makes England talk of merry Fressingfield.
I cannot trick it up with poesies, nor paint my passions with comparisons, nor tell a tale of Phoebus and his loves. But this, believe me, Laxfield here is mine, of ancient rent £700 a year. And if thou canst but love a country squire, I will enfeoff thee, Margaret, in all. I cannot flatter. Try me, if thou please.
Brave neighbouring squire, the stay of Suffolk's clime, a keeper's daughter is too base in gree to match with men accounted of such worth. But might I not displease, I would reply.
Say, Peggy, what shall make us discontent?
Then, gentles, note that love hath little stay, nor can the flames that Venus sets on fire be kindled but by fancy's motion. Then pardon, gentles, if a maid's reply be doubtful, while I have debated with myself, who or of whom love shall constrain me like.
Let it be me, and trust me, Margaret. The meads environ with the silver streams, whose battling pastures fatten all my flocks, yielding forth fleeces stapled with such wool as the Leinster cannot yield more finer stuff, and 40 kine with fair and burnished heads, with strouting dogs that paggle to the ground, shall serve thy dairy, if thou wed with me.
Pass the country wealth as flocks and kine, and lands that wave with careless golden sheaves, filling my barns with plenty of the fields. But Peggy, if thou wed thyself to me, thou shalt have garments of embroidered silk, lawns and rich knit works for thy head attire. Costly shall be thy habiliments, thy fair habiliments, for thou wilt be but Lambert's loving wife.
Content you, gentles, you have proffered fair, and more than fits a country maid's degree. But give me leave to counsel me a time, for fancy blooms not at the first assault. Give me but 10 days' respite, and I will reply, which or to whom myself affectionates.
Lambert, I tell thee, thou'rt importunate. Such beauty fits not such a base esquire. It is for Serlsby to have Margaret.
Thinkest thou with wealth to overreach me? Serlsby, I scorn to brook thy country braves. I dare thee, coward, to maintain this wrong. At dint of rapier, single in the field.
I'll answer, Lambert, what I have avouched. Margaret, farewell. Another time shall serve.
And exit Serlsby.
I'll follow. Peggy, farewell to thyself. Listen her bell, I'll answer for thy love.
Exit Lambert.
How fortune tempers lucky haps with frowns, and wrongs me with the sweets of my delight. Love is my bliss, and love is now my bale. Shall I be Helen in my froward fates, as I am Helen in my matchless hue, and set rich Suffolk with my face afire? If lovely Lacy were but with his Peggy, the cloudy darkness of his bitter frown would check the pride of these aspiring squires. Before the term of 10 days be expired, when as they look for answer of their loves, my lord will come to merry Fressingfield and end their fancies and their follies both. Till when, Peggy, be blithe and of good cheer.
And enter a post with a letter and a bag of gold.
Fair lovely damsel, which way leadeth this path? How might I post me unto Fressingfield? Which footpath leadeth to the keeper's lodge?
Your way's ready, and this path is right. Myself do dwell hereby in Fressingfield, and if the keeper be the man you seek, I am his daughter. May I know the cause?
Lovely, and once beloved of my lord. No marvel if his eyes were lodged so low, when brighter beauty is not in the heavens. The Lincoln Earl hath sent you letters here, and with them just £100 in gold. Sweet bonny wench, read them and make reply.
And gives letters and the bag.
The scrolls that Jove sent Danae, wrapped in rich closures of fine burnished gold, were not more welcome than these lines to me. Tell me, whilst that I do unrip the seals, lives Lacy well? How fares my lovely lord?
Well, if that wealth may make men to live well.
The blooms of the almond tree grow in a night and vanish in a morn. The flies hemerae, fair Peggy, take life with the sun and die with the dew. Fancy that slippeth in with the gaze, goeth out with a wink, and too timely loves have ever the shortest length. I write this as thy grief and my folly, who at Fressingfield loved that which time hath taught me to be but mean dainties. Eyes are dissemblers, and fancies but queasy. Therefore know, Margaret, I have chosen a Spanish lady to be my wife, chief waiting woman to the Princess Elinor, a lady fair, no less fair than thyself, honourable and wealthy. In that I forsake thee, I leave thee to thine own liking. And for thy dowry I've sent thee £100, and ever assure thee of my favour, which shall avail thee and thine much. Farewell. Not thine, nor his own, Edward Lacy. Fond Arte, doom of bad boding fates, that wraps proud fortune in thy snaky locks, didst thou enchant my birthday with such stars as lightened mischief from their infancy? If heavens had vowed, if stars had made decree, to shone me their froward influence, if Lacy had but loved heaven's hell, and all could not have wronged the patience of my mind.
It grieves me, damsel, but the Earl is forced to love the lady by the king's command.
The wealth combined within the English shelves, Europe's commander, nor the English king should not have moved the love of Peggy from her lord.
What answer shall I return to my lord?
First, for thou camest from Lacy, whom I loved, give me leave to sigh at every thought. Take thou, my friend, £100 he's sent, for Margaret's resolution craves no dower. The world shall be to her as vanity, wealth, trash, love, hate, pleasure, despair. For I will straight to stately Framlingham, and in the abbey there be shorn a nun, and yield my loves and liberty to God. Fellow, I give thee this, not for the news, for those be hateful unto Margaret, but for thou'rt Lacy's man, once Margaret's love.
What I have heard, what passions I have seen, I'll make report of them unto the Earl.
Say that she joys his fancies be at rest, and prays that his misfortune may be hers.
Oh, it's all kicking off. Wow, worst text message ever. God, you can. It's really nicely written. It's really nicely written by the way the post is speaking and being a bit tentative, and then the letter just sort of faps around for a bit and then gets to the point, and oh god, that hurts. And then the moment she puts the letter down, goes into revenge poetry. This is fabulous. Keep mentioning of Helen. Is this the face? Serlsby and Lambert, who we've never met before, go off and have a fight over Margaret's popular. I mean, let's say she's a catch. I don't know. Did we get the impression earlier in the text about being a keeper of the king, the daughter of the keeper of the king's game, and all that stuff? It didn't seem that's where we were earlier.
Yes, yeah, because they were constantly talking about the keeper's cottage, and that it was full of venison and cheese and stuff. Ah,
right. So he
provided the venison and she provided the cheese.
Yeah, so I just wasn't paying attention. That's something we need to make clear, because you know that it sort of makes a lot more sense in my mind now. Isn't she fab? I love Margaret. Thoughts?
I like Margaret a lot. I think she really carries the scene very well. And I like the letters and the back of gold. I thought that was very unexpected, the turn of events. And also the two suitors vying for her affection adds a nice drama to the text.
Yes, there is a little bit at the moment at the beginning of the scene going, hang on, have I missed something? I quite like that, actually. Alan, I saw a hand.
Yeah, I must admit the opening with the two country squires didn't half remind me of Oklahoma. You know, the farmers and the cowboys.
Yes.
And you know, it's you know it's really interesting that they just sort of throw that in to reintroduce us to Margaret as well. I mean, she's got choices as Margaret. She's got all the choices. Off to be a nun. Ruth.
I just wondered about the classical references that Margaret uses, because when she refers to the Jove and Danae, that's a rape scene. I mean, that's where Jove comes down to Danae as a shower of gold, and it's kind of makes an association between kind of sexual misdemeanors and rewards for that, and you know, there's the kind of presaging of the fact that she's going to reject the £100. But I just wondered how obvious that was, how learned she's meant to be, or how much the audience is meant to pick up that reference.
Well, we have had some questions earlier about Margaret not quite getting it right. So it might be for some percentage of the audience that is there's a continuing underlying gag there that might be functioning. But how apparent it is especially today, I think is the problem on that. Liza.
There may, you're right, we did pick up on that yesterday, but I mean, as you doubtless already know, Danae was used as a metaphor for love being mercenary at this time, which Margaret, of course, is not. She is noble of soul.
I liked her suitors. The differences between them. One of them obviously being quite a bit younger, I think, than the other. One probably approaching his first love, the other definitely a widower. I mean, this idea that if you look at the parish records, you will see that widowers tended to marry very, very quickly because they needed somebody to make the cheese, among other things, and manage the household.
I mean, it's a testament that this play does keep throwing in these occasional random characters, but they're very well drawn. You know, even if they're only in for a scene, I don't know whether they return off the top of my head. Any other thoughts, Jitka?
It made a lot of sense for me to have this scene right after the previous one, because it feels like a common people's version of a disputation. They don't conjure magicians, but they conjure very lovely, eloquent arguments of why she should marry them. And she does, I mean, the play does pitch it in this way. You know, when she speaks about, while I have debated with myself, the reference to disputations. And also I love the way they mention degrees. Common characters mention degrees. We had that with Miles in the previous scene for I shall exceed in the highest degree, of course following a disputation of academics in Oxford. It just again shows there is a structure of references, and it's not excluded only to the learned, the academics and the aristocrats.
Okay, we have got a fair amount still to get through in this session, so we're going to go into the next one. There may be some stage directions that I won't read out. I may just enact. So good luck, everyone, and things. They'll be obvious. They'll be obvious. Okay, Act 4, as it is in our version, Scene 1. Friar Bacon draws the curtains as is discovered lying in a bed, with a white stick in one hand, a book in the other, and a lamp lighted beside him. And the Brazen Head, and Miles with weapons by him.
Miles, where are you?
Here, sir.
How chance you tarry so long?
Think you that the watching of the Brazen Head craves no furniture? I warrant you, sir, I have so armed myself that if all your devils come, I will not fear them an inch.
Miles, thou knowst that I have dived into hell, and sought the darkest palaces of fiends, that with my magic spells great Belcephon hath left his lodge and kneeled at my cell. The rafters of the earth rent from the poles, and three-formed Luna hid her silver looks, trembling upon her concave continent, when Bacon read upon his magic book. With 7 years, tossing necromantic charms, pouring upon dark Hecate's principles, I have framed out a monstrous head of brass, that by the enchanting forces of the devil shall tell out strange and uncouth aphorisms, and girt fair England with a wall of brass. Bungay and I have watched these 70 days, and now our vital spirits crave some rest. If Argus lived and had his 100 eyes, they could not watch over Phobator's night. Now, Miles, in thee rests Friar Bacon's weal. The honor and renown of all his life hangs in the watching of this Brazen Head. Therefore I charge thee by the immortal God that holds the souls of men within his fist, this night thou watch. For ere the morning star sends out his glorious glister on the north, the head will speak. Then, Miles, upon thy life wake me, for then by magic art I'll work to end my 7 years' task with excellence. If that a wink but shut thy watchful eye, then farewell Bacon's glory and his fame. Draw close the curtains, Miles. Now, for thy life, be watchful.
And he falls asleep.
So, I thought you would talk yourself asleep anon, and 'tis no marvel. For Bungay on the days, and he on the nights, have watched just these 10 and 50 days. Now this is the night, and 'tis my task, and no more. Jesus bless me, what a goodly head it is, and a nose. You talk of nos autem glorificare, but here's a nose that I'll warrant may be called nos autem populare for the people of the parish. Well, I'm furnished with weapons. Now, sir, I will set me down by a post and make it as good a watchman to wake me if I chance to slumber. I thought, good man Head, I would call you out of your memento. Passion of God, I've almost broke my pate. Ah! Up, Miles, to your task. Take your brown bill in your hand. Here's some of your master's hobgoblins abroad. Time is. Why, Master Brazenhead, have you such a capital nose, and answer you with syllables, time is? Is this all my master's cunning to spend 7 years study about time is? Well, sir, it may be we shall have some better orations of it anon. I'll watch you as narrowly as ever you were watched, and I'll play with you as the nightingale with the slow worm. I'll set a prick against my breast. Now rest there, Miles. Lord have mercy upon me. I've almost killed myself. Ah! Up, Miles. List how they rumble.
Was.
Wow. Friar Bacon, You have spent your 7 years' study. Well, that can make your head speak but 2 words at once. Time was. Yea, marry, time was when my master was a wise man. That was before he began to make the Brazen Head. You shall lie while your arse ache and your head speak no better. Well, I will watch and walk up and down and be a Peripatean and a philosopher of Aristotle's stamp. Ah, what fresh noise! Take thy pistols in hand, Miles.
Time is past, and a lightning flashes forth, and a hand appears that breaks down the head with a hammer.
Master! Master! Up! Hell's broken loose! Your head speaks, and there's such a thunder and lightning that I warrant all of Oxford is up in arms! Out of your bed and take a brown bill in your hand! The latter day is come!
Miles, I come. Oh, passing merrily watched, Bacon will make thee next himself in love, when spake the head.
When spake the head? Did you not say that he should tell strange principles of philosophy? Why, sir, it speaks but 2 words at a time.
Why, villain, hath it spoken oft?
Oft, aye, marry, hath it thrice. But in all those 3 times it hath uttered but 7 words.
As how?
Marry, sir, the first time he said time is, as if Fabius Commentator should have pronounced a sentence. Second time he said time was. And the third time, with thunder and lightning, as in great choler, he said, time is past.
'Tis past indeed. Ah, villain, time is past. My life, my fame, my glory, all are past. Bacon, the turrets of thy hope are ruined down. Thy 7 years' study lieth in the dust. The Brazen Head lies broken through a slave that watched and would not when the head did will. What said the head first?
Even, sir, time is.
Villain! If thou hadst called to Bacon, then, if thou hadst watched and waked the sleepy friar, the Brazen Head had uttered aphorisms, and England had been circled round with brass. But proud Asmenoth, ruler of the north, and Demogorgon, and master of the fates, grudge that a mortal man should work so much. Hell trembled at my deep commanding spells. Fiends frowned to see a man there overmatch. Bacon might boast more than a man might boast, but now the braves of Bacon have an end. Europe's conceit of Bacon hath an end. His 7 years' practice sorteth to ill end. And villains, if thy glory has an end, I will appoint thee to some fatal end. Villain, avoid. Get thee from Bacon's sight. Vagrant, go roam and range about the world, and perish as a vagabond on earth.
Why then, sir, you forbid me your service?
My service, villain, with a fatal curse, that direful plagues and mischief fall on thee.
'Tis no matter. I am against you with the old proverb, the more the fox is cursed, the better he fares. God be with you, sir. I'll take but a book in my hand, a wide-sleeved gown on my back, and a crowned cap on my head, and see if I can want promotion.
And he exits.
Some fiend or ghost haunt on thy weary steps, until they do transport thee quick to hell. For Bacon never shall have merry day, to lose the fame and honor of his head.
And so the Brazen Head scene has passed. It's always nice to see a prop reused, as it will be many a time. I had fun. I don't know if you did.
You were overloading a bit, so
I'm sure I was.
Audible.
That is fine because they repeat the lines, so it doesn't matter whether you could hear me. So yeah. Thoughts? Anyone want to leap in? Alan?
Again, if they've got what is obviously quite an expensive prop, which they're intending to reuse, some interesting mechanics there to break it down in such a way that it can reappear for the next performance.
Well, that's the question is also for storage, presumably. If it is dismantleable in pieces, then you can fit it in your props bay more efficiently. It's the question of the giant hand or whatever it is that's a hand appears that breaks down the head. I don't know if it's a giant hand or if it's just a random it's or a giant Monty Python foot.
It's Monty P in the foot, isn't it?
Yeah. Other thoughts? Anyone else want to leap in?
So I missed yesterday, so I don't know. The Brazen Head, is this meant to, so this has been made, has it? So this is a kind of, or is this being conjured up? I'm not sure whether what we're looking at here is a kind of man-made automaton that's meant to trump supernatural magic, or I mean there's lots of supernatural features to the head itself, pronouncing all those kind of gnomic time is, time was, and so on. So I'm not quite clear what I'm meant to be looking at here.
It does seem that it's a thing that they have made. There is magic involved, and it's taken it's been the center point of his career, to make this thing. So it's sort of both in that sense. But yes, it's the culmination of a very long art project that because he falls asleep, goes horribly wrong, and he gets nonsense. Does have a sort of mechanical Turk quality to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what I thought, the automaton.
Any other thoughts before we move forward, which we will need to shortly? Alan again.
Yeah, I mean, we had the head of Mahomet in another play a week or two ago. I'm not quite sure how that ties in terms of timeline.
Oh, we think it's probably the same company, and it's probably the same prop. That seems plausible. And it seems to be a prop that gets reused later as well. So, it has a life. Once you've built the damn thing, you're going to use it. Tamara, did I see a hand?
Well, that was what I was wondering, if it's only the one company who has got this particular special effect. If we know that.
Well, I'd say if it seems to be in multiple plays, and it seems to be associated with the company. It's like the chariot in the over at the Tamburlaine stables. They've got the chariot, so it will appear in multiple plays. Different company. Liza.
Daniel has just shared an image with us of the title page from 1630. So I wondered if I might share my screen a moment so that people can see it, or unless you're going to do it by post-production.
No, try it, because I can't see it. I can see the file, but I can't see the image. So go for it. Let's have a go.
Right. It says you've disabled attendee screen sharing. So let's just pass on, and you can always put it in the thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a very nice image on the title page of the Brazen Head, which on this page has curly hair and a mustache. It's got Bacon sleeping, and it's got Miles, who has the traditional Elizabethan clown attributes of a pipe and tabor. That's a drum that he's playing with one hand and a pipe with the other. And it's also got your traditional scholar's room props of a bookshelf and an armillary sphere.
Honestly, it looks very much like this.
Nah.
No, I'm not saying.
Who's that?
I can't say, but
it's a Brazen Head, obviously.
Yeah.
Interestingly, this was a woodcut that was printed for the second quarter. The first quarter doesn't have this woodcut on it. The second quarter was printed. First one was 1594. The second was 1630. After 1655, the third one, it just got printed over and over for the rest of the century. The play itself, I think 7 times that century, and then an 8th time in 1700. And by that point, I think I forget which year in the 1660s, but they had to redo the woodcut because obviously it had been.
Any more on this scene, or anything about it that particularly leaps out at you before we move forward?
No, just thanks, Daniel, for sending that. I've just opened it up. It's great. It's really wonderful. Yeah. The bacon at the table is great.
Okay, moving on to Act 4, Scene 2, as we have it. Enter the Emperor, King of Castile, King Henry, Elinor, Prince Edward, Lacy, and Rafe.
Now, lovely Prince, the prime of Albion's wealth, how fare the Lady Elinor and you? What? Have you courted and found Castile fit to answer England in equivalence? Twill be a match twixt bonny Nil and thee.
Should Paris enter in the courts of Greece and not lie fettered in fair Helen's looks? Or Phoebus scape those piercing amorets that Daphne glanced at his deity? Can Edward, then, sit by a flame and freeze, whose heat puts Helen and fair Daphne down? Now, monarchs, ask the lady if we agree.
What, madam? Hath my son found grace, or no?
Seeing, my lord, his lovely counterfeit, and hearing how his mind and shape agreed, I came not, trooped with all this warlike train, doubting of love, but so affectionate as Edward hath in England what he won in Spain.
A match, my lord, these wantons needs must love. Men must have wives, and women will be wed. Let's haste the day to honour up the rights.
There are Harry. Shall Ned marry Nell?
Aye, Ralph. How then?
Marry, Harry, follow my counsel. Send for Friar Bacon to marry them, for he will conjure him and her with his necromancy, that they shall love together like pig and lamb whilst they live.
But hearest thou, Ralph, art thou content to have Elinor to thy lady?
Aye, so she will promise me 2 things.
What's that, Ralph?
That she will never scold with Ned, nor fight with me. Sarah, Harry, I have put her down with a thing impossible.
What's that, Ralph?
Why, Harry, didst thou ever see that a woman could both hold her tongue and her hands? No! But when egg pies grow on apple trees, then will they grey mare prove a bagpiper.
What say the Lord of Castile and the Earl of Lincoln, that they're in such earnest and secret talk?
I stand, my lord, amazed at this talk, how he discourseth of the constancy of one surnamed for beauty's excellence, the fair maid of Mary Fressingfield.
'Tis true, my lord. 'Tis wondrous for to hear. Her beauty passing Mars's paramour, her virgin's right as rich as Venus Vesta's was. Lacy and Ned have told me miracles.
What says Lord Lacy? Shall she be his wife?
Or else Lord Lacy is unfit to live. May it please your highness give me leave to post to Fressingfield. I'll fetch the bonny girl, and prove in true appearance at the court what I have vouchsafed often with my tongue.
Lacy, go to the quarry of my stable, and take such courses as shall fit thy turn. Hie thee to Fressingfield, and bring home the lass. And for her fame flies through the English coast, if it may please the Lady Elinor, one day shall match your excellence and her.
We Castile ladies are not very coy. Your highness may command a greater boon, and glad were I to grace the Lincoln Earl with being partner of his marriage day.
Gramercy, Nell, for I do love the Lord as he that's second to myself in love.
You love her? Madam Nell, never believe him you, though he swears he loves you.
Why, Ralph?
Why? His love is like unto a tapster's glass that is broken with every touch. For he loved the fair maid of Fressingfield once out of all her. Nay, Ned, never wink upon me, I care not, I.
Ralph tells all. You shall have a good secretary of him. But, Lacy, haste thee post to Fressingfield. For ere thou hast fitted all things for her state, the solemn marriage day will be at hand.
I go, my lord.
And exit.
How shall we pass this day, my lord?
To horse, my lord. The day is passing fair. We'll fly the partridge, or go rouse the deer. Follow, my lords. You shall not want for sport.
And they all go off to have a jolly good time. Rah, 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 rah. Yeah, there's interesting little home truths and little things being flown around here. And Lacy, and that's going to go well. I think we can predict that there's no problem here at all. Helen's shaking her head in absolute horror by the looks of it.
What's going on?
Well, so everyone's heard the gossiping that there's this fair maid in Suffolk, in Fressingfield, and so they're sending Lacy to fetch her because she's such a wonder.
On the understanding that he's going to marry her, which he seems to be agreeing to.
He does. Was there something dodgy about the letter?
That's what I'm beginning to wonder.
Dun, dun, dun.
Gold came with the letter. He's being bought.
Yeah. What says Lord Lacy? Shall she be his wife? Or else Lord Lacy is unfit to live?
Yes.
No, it's the Spanish lady that Lacy's supposed to be marrying. So something is wrong.
Yes, the page seemed to think it was the king's command that Lacy was marrying someone else. But the king doesn't say a word, and we never see the other lady.
Well, so far.
Who might, in fairness, be a mute role doubled by, an elderly actor with a beard or something.
or may perfectly well be yet to appear. I mean, this play is not playing fair. The audience are supposed to be in on the secret. This is one of the rules of early modern drama. The audience knows.
Greene played
The audience knows what's going on, even if the characters don't.
I don't know if Greene does that. We've had a few instances of confusions. Alan, I've seen a hand for a while.
Yeah, I mean, my immediate conclusion on that scene was that the letter that was sent to Margaret was in fact at the behest of the prince. He was getting his own back effectively by screwing up their situation.
Or it's a test.
Oh God.
I'm not saying I know the answer. I'm staying stum. Stephen.
Sort of not quite following on, but can I just say that Rafe is the kind of actor who gives Elizabethan clowns a really bad name. When egg pies grow on apple trees, then will I, grey mare, prove a bagpiper. It's like, okay, 4 random things in one sentence. Yeah. When a salt cellar talks to a piece of cake, then will the floor become a toaster?
Yeah,
What do you expect of
It's so
somebody
typically
whose name is-
awful.
Yeah, but Stephen, isn't it a case of every village should have one?
No.
You know, this player's got plenty.
His name is Ralph, and probably he does, like you, pronounce it as Rafe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I realised I should have said Rafe, right? from
Yeah.
the
No, I'm going Ralph all the way. I don't care. It's Ralph.
But the whole point of this is that he is about to explain that the prince was massively in love with the maid of Fressingfield.
Oh, he's really being not very helpful in the room at this moment, is he?
Yeah,
You can see.
and they're
Elinor,
having
why?
to...
Why, Ralph? Why? What's going on?
Shut up, faces at me. I know what I'm doing.
Yes.
Yes, Ralph tells all.
Yes.
Page 3 of the Tudor Sun.
So anyway, we do need to go into the final scene of the session. Any final thoughts about that scene? No. Okay, we'll move forward. So for scene 3, enter to Friar Bacon in his cell. Friar Bungay. Here we are. Grudge match time, I'm sure.
It means the friar that frolicked it of late, as melancholy in his cell as if he had neither lost nor won today.
Ah, Bungay, my brazen head is spoiled, my glory gone, my 7 years' study lost. The fame of Bacon bruited through the world shall end and perish with this deep disgrace.
Bacon hath built foundation, name so surely on the wings of true report, with acting strange and uncouth miracles, as this cannot infringe what he deserves.
Bungay, sit down. For by prospective skill I find this day shall fall out ominous. Some deadly act shall tide me ere I sleep, but what and wherein little I can guess. My mind is heavy. Whatsoe'er shall hap.
There's a knocking within.
Who's that knocks?
2 scholars that desire to speak with you.
Bid them come in.
Enter the 2 scholars.
Now, my youths, what would you have?
Sir, we are Suffolk men and neighbouring friends. Our fathers in their countries lusty squires. Their lands adjoin, at Cratfield mine doth dwell, and his at Laxfield. We are college mates, sworn brothers, as our fathers live as friends.
To what end is all this?
Hearing your worship kept within your cell a glass perspective wherein men might see whatso their thoughts or heart's desires could wish, we come to know how that our fathers fare.
My glass is free for every honest man. Sit down, and you shall see ere long how or in what state your friendly fathers live. Meanwhile, tell me your names.
Mine is Lambert.
And mine Serlsby.
Bungay, I smell there'll be a tragedy.
Indeed, enter Lambert and Serlsby with rapiers and daggers.
Serlsby, thou hast kept thine hour like a man. Thou art worthy of the title of a squire, and durst, for proof of thy affection, and for thy mistress's favour, prize thy blood. Thou knowest what words did pass at Fressingfield. Such shameless braves as manhood cannot brook. Aye, for I scorn to bear such piercing taunts. Prepare thee, Serlsby, one of us will die.
Thou seest I single meet thee in the field, and what I spake I'll maintain with my sword. Stand on thy guard, I cannot scold it out. And if thou kill me, think I have a son that lives in Oxford on the Broad Gates Hall, who will revenge his father's blood with blood.
And Serlsby, I have there a lusty boy, that dares a weapon buckle with thy son, and lives in Broadgate too, as well as thine. But draw thy rapier, for we'll have a bout.
Now, lusty Yonkers, look within the glass, and tell me if you can discern your sires.
Serlsby, 'tis hard. Thy father offers wrong, to combat with my father in the field.
Lambert, thou liest. My father's is the abuse. Thou shalt find it, if my father harm.
How goes it, sirs?
Our fathers are in combat, hard by Fressingfield.
Sit still, my friends, and see the event.
Why standest thou, Serlsby? Doubtest thou of thy life? A vain man. Fair Margaret craves so much.
Then this for her.
Oh, well thrust.
But mark the ward.
Lambert and Serlsby fight and stab each other.
Oh, I am slain.
Dies
And I, Lord, have mercy on me.
and dies.
My father slain, Serlsby, ward that.
And so is mine. Lambert, I'll quite thee well.
And the 2 scholars stab each other and die.
Oh, strange stratagem.
See, friar, where the fathers both lie dead. Bacon, thy magic doth effect this massacre. The glass perspective worketh many woes, and therefore seeing these brave lusty brutes, these friendly youths did perish by thine art, end all thy magic and thine art at once. The poniard that did end their fatal lives shall break the cause efficient of their woes. So fade the glass, and end with it the shows that necromancy did infuse the crystal with.
And he breaks the glass.
What means learned Bacon thus to break his glass?
I tell thee, Bungay, it repents me sore that ever Bacon meddled in this art. The hours I've spent in pyromantic spells, the fearful tossing in the latest night of papers full of necromantic charms, conjuring and adjuring demons and fiends, with stole and alb and strange pentageron, the wresting of the holy name of God as Soter, Elohim, and Adonai, Alpha, Manoth, and Tetragrammaton, with praying to the fivefold powers of heaven, are instances that Bacon must be damned for using devils to countervail his God. Yet Bacon, cheer thee, drown not in despair, sins have their salves, repentance can do much. Think mercy sits where justice holds her seat, and from those wounds those bloody Jews did pierce, which by thy magic oft did bleed afresh, from thence for thee the dew of mercy drops, to wash the wrath of high Jehovah's ire, and make thee as a newborn babe from sin. Bungay, I'll spend the remnant of my life in pure devotion, praying to my God that he would save what Bacon vainly lost.
And the scene ends. First, the art project goes horribly wrong, and then his seeing glass leads to death and destruction. I mean, obviously, the big mistake that Bacon did was conjuring up a terrifying coincidence spell, which meant that everyone has to be drawn together from separate plot points that have nothing really to do with each other. It's a terrifying skill if you can manage it, and does terrible, terrible things. Okay, thoughts about that scene? We have mentioned in passing, comedy, history, tragedy. What is it?
The spectacle as well.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of this show. You come out whistling the effects.
Mm. Stephen, I saw a hand.
We kind of missed it, but they refer to themselves as Swan Brothers. And there's been some very interesting work done by Alan Bray, amongst others, on, doesn't quite map on, but same-sex marriages, same-sex kind of commitments. So it's really easy to miss, and it just sounds quite generic. But actually, in the early modern period, it's a really, really significant commitment that these guys have made to one another. And the fact that that is torn apart, I think, would be something that is easy for us now to miss. And it gives the scene a sort of huge tilt towards kind of tragic waiting, I think. There's a sort of, just that one phrase can indicate a sort of massive commitment. We spoke, I think, yesterday about sort of similar passionate attachments and how those could be seen to be kind of threatened. So it's a little bit like the sort of scene where the father kills the son, son kills the father. It could have that level of emotional weighting to it.
Mm.
We do often see. I appreciate your name check of Professor Bray here, who's amazing. We do often see in early modern plays that this idealized heroic friendship between men. Again, it only gets a passing mention here, but that these relationships are destabilized and often destroyed by heterosexual love.
So in that sense, we've seen something a bit like that with Lacy and the King in the opening of the play.
There's a lot of these thematic repeats throughout this. So not only we've got these relationships being put under stress by other romantic relationships, but also is the way that debating is being stretched and played with in slightly different ways. Either and different arguments and different conflicts that are coming between people who are on the same side or not on the same side. There's constant play with that thematically. Aliki again.
I have to say, I was not expecting that we would go from this, quite funny little scene of, oh, my life's work is destroyed, which is how I was reading it, to 4 deaths in the blink of an eye.
Because, we didn't state last time that, the Brazen Head scene, it feels like it's an outlier. It has nothing it's just there as a bit of a gag. Yeah. But actually, it's leading to this scene, that his work's keep going horribly wrong. And Bacon seems to be a bit depressed. I mean,
Well,
just generally from the start.
He spent
but it seems
7 years on that.
Yeah,
it's like failing your Viva.
He's not getting anything out of it, is he? He just seems so miserable all the time.
This scene is very much. I mean, first of all, I don't know if he should blame himself, because presumably the next day letters would have come for both men telling about the circumstances of their father's deaths, and they might well have fought and died in any case. But Bacon, Bacon, we're very much in dialogue with Dr. Faustus here about the redemptive powers of Christ's blood. It's the 11th hour speech really calls back and forth with this, as well as Faustus' earlier speech, when I behold the heavens, then I repent. And Bacon makes the very sensible decision that he can, in fact, repent. He hasn't sold his soul to devils. He just invokes them and commands them and sends them home again. So that's an interesting difference.
Yeah. So we're now into extra time. So it's really very much final thoughts I'm going to be calling for. You can dance around with stuff we've just done if you like. But yeah, thinking about the play as a whole, what is it? What's it doing? We've got very little of the play left. In theory, we've got, Act 5, massive air quotes. We've got basically a few scenes, 3 scenes to go. They're not very long. We're very much into the final gasp of the action. We're very much heading downhill now to the end of the play. So that sense of how it's playing, what it's going on with the tone, what you might want to do with it today, any other just random thoughts. Who wants to leap in first? Ruth.
I'm just wondering about the sort of courtly love themes that you've got in the play, because you've got the 2 men hopelessly in love, all these pairs of men hopelessly in love with Margaret, and I'm just wondering how seriously that is actually being treated as a theme, because that the deaths, Lambert and Serlsby, that almost seems comic or overly melodramatic. So I don't know whether it's not really taking the whole kind of courtly love idea seriously or not. I don't know what to make of the tone of that.
Lots of questions about tone, of which I don't have any answers myself. I think there's one very much to figure out, not only in rehearsal, but also with the audience, figuring out where it lands.
And the play is, after all, is given the names of the 2 friars rather than focusing on the love thing. It's about a kind of scholastic friendship or scholastic face-off, or that seems to kind of take the kind of upper hand.
Probably it's just a good title. Who else wants to jump in? Final thoughts before I start picking on you. Tamara, I'll pick on you.
Well, I was surprised how easy it was for me to jump in and kind of follow along, considering that I missed the first bit yesterday. I'm again, as I usually am, I'm fascinated by Margaret. I'm fascinated by that female character. And I want to see where it goes. I haven't quite got a grasp on tone, I don't think. But again, that might just be because I've missed yesterday.
Probably not, no. Aliki, any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I was here yesterday and I am even more confused, I think, now than I was yesterday. I'm completely puzzled by the tone. We've got the high court diplomacy business. We've got the academic disputation. We've got the comical, tragical loves. We've got, I don't know what's going on.
Elizabeth, any final thoughts?
Yes, I completely agree with Tamara and Aliki. I think I second Aliki's point I was here yesterday, but I still don't really understand what's happened and why those Serlsby and Lambert have killed each other. I don't understand why they killed each other or why their namesakes also kill each other. But it's definitely possible that the play writes itself in the final act. So I'm holding out for tomorrow, that maybe by tomorrow it will be tied up, it will be bow, and it will be obvious as to why those things happened.
Yes, I mean it is that thing. There is not that much text left to go, and it's a question of what needs tying up. And it's in a sense the primary thing that needs tying up now is probably Margaret, as Tamara said. But what's going on in this scholastic domino suicide murder thing, is anybody's guess. Stephen, final thoughts?
Well, just in terms of tying up, remember that disputation? We were all thinking, what on earth is that doing? But it did tell us a lot about pyromancy and how that was, what the connections were between that and devils. And in this scene, Bacon says, this is all the fault of pyromancy. So there is a kind of callback. That ground has been prepared a little bit in that seemingly very abstruse and dry discussion of the two kinds of magic. Hercules does what he does because Bacon is a mightier pyromancer, but that isn't really made so obvious. He's just better at it than Vandermast. And here, however many pages down the line, we get a callback.
Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It works at a reasonable pace. I think what we're getting sort of almost 3 levels of echo. You've got the courtly love contest, which we started off between the Prince and Lely for Margaret. You've then got the sort of the mid-range rivalry with the two Suffolk squires, and maybe a slightly lower life. I must admit the thought I got with the two scholars is play them in Bullingdon Club attire. The other one that was running through my head, and whether there's any link to it at all, was the with the Lady Elinor, thinking of the Lindisfarne number, which people may or may not know.
Elucidate.
Well, Lindisfarne was a folk rock piece from the very early 70s. Whether it's this Elinor or a more generic one, I'm not sure. And my memory is not such that I can remember large chunks of the lyric off the top of my head. But it's one people might want to seek out.
It's not a song called Fotheringay, is it?
No, that's fair.
Because that was about the Eleanor of Aquitaine. She's much earlier.
No, Fotheringay is a separate issue.
Lady Elinor is about a sort of spirit who comes to somebody and takes him away to the sort of fairyland, as it were.
Yeah.
Succubus, a bit like sort of Hotel California sort of vibe to it.
Yeah, I mean, but it makes about as much sense as most British folk music does.
But to be fair, that's very much a Robert Greene vibe, isn't it?
Yes.
Random fairies and
also, I wonder why why he seems to be using Suffolk as the locus for a lot of this. Was he Suffolk, or was he just taking the mickey out of it?
I don't know. I mean, I'm going to continue doing the geography, checking out of how it all scans out. So I'm going to look at Cratfield and Laxfield between now and tomorrow. So it's really weird, the geography. I'm finding it fascinating. I have no answer to that. Helen, final thoughts?
Yes, I mean, I'm quite interested in these middling sort types, because so far with Greene, we haven't really had the middling sort. We've had the low life, and we've had superior people, and we've had supernatural people. But having a couple of country squires and their student sons is different. They're a group I'm quite interested in.
Yeah. The Oxford Dons are not necessarily of high degree, of course.
No, but they're sort of in a category. By having given up their lives to learning, they have a separate status set.
Liza, final thoughts?
Well, I mean, I do kind of love this play, and tone is a question, but what I would do if I were handed it to direct, which, not totally outside the bounds of possibility, but what I would do is not decide in advance what the tone was going to be. I would just give the actors the play to do and see what came up. Maybe experiment with doing a few different things, but scenes like the first scene we read with the prince threatening to stab people and then suddenly being okay with it. It is funny, but I don't. But it's not funnier if you send it up. I think it's funnier if you play it straight. And I do like, in fact, apart from Lambert and Serlsby, who regrettably could not resolve their differences. Bacon and Bungay start out as rivals and end up as colleagues. The prince, at one breath, believes himself a deadly rival to Lacy, and then is suddenly quite okay with it and facilitates the marriage. And hey, he met someone who's even hotter, dude, so that's okay. So like, apart from the death, I'm liking the motif of things actually being okay. Bacon doesn't get dragged to hell by devils. It's going to be okay, guys. It's going to be all right.
It's interesting that you're talking about these extremes and talking about certain ways of performing melodrama. Of you follow a straight path in the direction of this is what I'm feeling right now until the moment when you're feeling something else, and then you're immediately feeling the other thing. There isn't a transition or a thing. And as a performance style, I wonder if that's a way of looking at this. That
extreme reactions.
Yeah, is that it is heightened throughout. But I don't think we should impose an absolute. I think you're right. Absolutely, we should throw this at some actors and let them sort it out. They'll be fine. Dan, final thought.
I'm going to add a fourth echo to Alan and follow Liza as well. That I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving it. I love that it's not. It's not an easy play to just pin down and say, oh, well, it should be this type of play, or it should follow this tone. I think that we've seen this with pretty much every other Greene play that we've done. Orlando Furiosa, for example, it seems to be going in one direction. It's got this really dark Navy humor about the leg, and I like that I don't know where it's going. And I like that it works on the three levels that Alan was saying. It's not just for... I said this yesterday, I feel like there's something for everybody here. And I like the pace that it goes sometimes this jaunty pace, as if not to take it so seriously, but in fact there certainly are things that Greene wants to say, and I think that's common for all the Greene plays. It's never just a fun romp in the forest with him.
It's that sense of Greene as a very pointed experimenter. He's really playing with form. He's playing with ideas. And he's doing it of a purpose. It's not he's just putting random things together. He is creating something that somehow works most of the time, even if it is very, very, very random. And I love the fact that I don't know where we're going. I think that's a delight. That's sort of one of the problems with some plays is that you know where it's going, it's going to end here, they're all going to die. You're just waiting how it will happen. It's a question: will it be an extravagant, over-the-top death, or will it be rather disappointing and off stage? I love the fact we have this really such extremes of emotions and events sometimes happening. Jitka, I think you are last of the trawl. Final thoughts.
Yeah, I would very much echo what has been said. Having a description of look how very sexy it can be to make cheese in the first scene, and end with this massive, really fast-paced slaughter due to something you see in a looking glass or mirror. That's unexpected. But I love the way the title page actually destabilizes the genre. I think we approach it with our pre-knowledge, because this is a famous play. It is sort of known as a comedy, but the honorable history of Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay, as the title page says, we are asked not to have those expectations. So yeah, very much what was said. I'm struck by that line Bacon says, Bungay, I smell there will be a tragedy when he hears the names. It doesn't make much of a sense to me, because he was not present during the scene where they were trying to woo her. Does he have some sort of meta knowledge of the plot, and is he trying to push it more obviously into a tragedy? Because the moment he says it, we feel, oh yeah, this is really going to hell. So yeah, Bacon seems to be someone trapped in his mistakes, like he was asleep, and also he seems to be authorial figure would be too much, but one really who tries to write the story and write it almost against our expectations, in terms of what we were thinking was going to happen in this way when we opened the first scene. So yeah, it is fascinating and quite manifold.
Yeah, it's interesting because we have been focusing mostly on Bacon, but Bungay I'm finding really interesting because in theory he's just some guy, who happened to be at hand, who could be do some form of ceremony of marriage early on, and then he's whisked here. Immediately they just become very collegiate, and he's there almost as his walking conscience, actually, by the end of here. And it's it's that question of his billing here as Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay, but Bungay is very much a supporting role, and I find that interesting as well. Whether the title itself destabilizes our idea of what this play should be. Because, would we like to have a competition to come up before next time what title you would like to give this play alternatively? Come up with your own titles, answers on a postcard, sent to the usual address.
Margaret of Suffolk.
Yes.
The Fair Maid of Fressingham.
I think she, in a sense, she covers everything, doesn't she?
Fair Maid of Fressingham.
Anyway, that's it from everyone, I think. Thank you very much once again for another fabulous session. Next time, we're going to be touching on the very, very end of the play. There isn't very much text to do. We should get through it relatively swiftly, and then we go straight on into the sequel, John of Bordeaux, or as I think Helen has put it, Friar Bacon rides again. So we will be able to...
This time it's personal.
Yeah. We'll be able to go straight into what happens next. And so thank you very much to everyone in the room, and goodbye.
Bye.